What is going on, everybody? Happy Friday. BobbyFi with my man, Eric Sheets Haber. Coming off of, look, I didn't play big last night, but not great night for me. Got some of the value stuff right in some small spots. Sheets looks like he's got some good stuff going on with the golf, so we'll talk about that in just a minute. But we got a fun big slate tonight. We're going to get into game by game. It's probably going to be a little bit of our normal hour-long video, so be ready for it. And Sheets, tell us a little bit about the golf. What's happening?
Yeah, I just fired this up here. So this is how I'm doing in the golf. And again, one of the guys has really just been very poor, the Harris English. But fortunately, it's a no-cut event, so that's going to be doing okay. But the guy I have like a zillion % of, Billy Horschel, has the lead.
That's incredible.
Which is really, really good. And Matsuyama, he's fighting. And I have two guys with the lead. Both in the same lineup.
Oh yeah, too, yeah.
So that looks pretty good. That's the big one. And then I'm running okay. And again, when I say running okay, it's just the way I just kind of happen to shuffle my lineups. In the 3 max, I have, where are they? So I have 3 entries, and one of them's in 15th, and the other's in 26th.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, so let's just take a look and see what the 15th place one is. I wonder if it's the same lineup or not. I have to just see. Yeah, it is actually. Yeah, it is. So it's the same lineup. So this is what we're rooting on. We're rooting for English, thankfully not to withdraw, which was good.
Yeah, he just birdied.
Excellent.
Okay.
And Webb Simpson to just be Webb, and Billy Ho to keep doing his thing, and maybe who knows? Maybe these other guys start to roll a little bit.
No more triple and double bogeys from Hideki, and he might have the lead himself.
Yeah, well, you never know. And I laughed. I was saying that what's the difference in triple and double bogey? I keep forgetting that these place points mean something. So
yeah, exactly. Actually, Webb should. I mean, that looks pretty good. I mean, even Matsuyama should have a pretty good number. Still a lot of birdies.
Yeah. So we'll see how that develops. And now we'll get in. And just so you guys know, I did put up a something with NASCAR, and I have this concept of the way I'm kind of like dealing with. I put something up without looking at any content of like all the experts, like Brandon and Stevie, PFL, all these guys, and just to give me an idea of what I would do. You know what I mean? Just as like it's just not a chalk player, but someone who just knows enough to put in a decent lineup. And then I'm trying to tweak it as we go on over the next couple of days. And then put ownership on top of it to see if we can come up with something. I'm also going to drop an MMA thing again in the Discord. Just a little highlight. It's very, very, in my opinion, not that my opinion starting to matter a little bit in that sport, is it's a very, very difficult card this week. At least the way I bet, at least the way I play, it's a difficult card. And so I'll be putting stuff up for that, and I'll be popping in and out with the NBA. I don't know what Bobby's schedule is this weekend, but you never know when you might see us pop in there.
Yeah, and again, guys, we do the shows every at least once a day, usually twice a day, every day of the week. But every now and then the weekends we don't do it. But we will do some bonus ones, and we'll let you know in Discord and all that. All right, Cheech, you want to get into it game by game?
Yeah. So again, just so you guys know, I mean, you guys should know this by now, but the usual disclaimer, it's noon. Even the projection models are kind of very, very stale, and news is very, very stale. But just to give an idea, I guess, of what's going on, right? So we're going to go game by game. I guess I'll start.
Yeah.
My first look, again, I haven't looked ahead. I'm just literally going game by game. Is that Indiana, Boston? I presume Kemba is back.
Yeah. And
nothing particularly is popping out for me for the Boston side, right at first glance. And on the Indiana side, I got to say, likewise, everybody seems kind of fair. So, again, we can come back to this, and maybe in other games, people are worse than fair. But right now, this doesn't look like the type of game that I'm going to come up with a lot of great plays.
I think Kemba's a really good play. In general, this year, we've had to sort of adjust to the fact that he's pretty much only played his best games against good teams. But then I did some more digging, and I was looking just back at how each game went. And really, what's happened to him is that he's just missed shots he just missed shots in some games. I don't really know how else to say it. I mean, This guy in his last 2 games has taken 40 shots. He's 6,200. He's running the offense. He has the ball in his hands. He put up 32 in the last game, going 8 for 19. Obviously, you don't want 32 for 6,200 on a big slate, but put a 52 a few games back against Atlanta. Now it's Atlanta, so whatever. And Indy, as much as they have a reputation for being great defensively, and they actually are decent defensively. They're not I'm not saying they're a bad defensive team. They just aren't what people think they are quite. And they played enough Pinto games. This game's got a nice little healthy 219 total. And I think Kemba at 6,200 is a steal. And I think he's going to be popular depending on what else breaks throughout the day. But he's my favorite play in this game. The only other guy I have interest in at all is Miles Turner, which we can revisit later on because I'm guessing we're going to see a lot of other plays that you're going to want to play probably over Turner.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, again, I'm just kind of like I'm scanning a little bit ahead as
Do you want a tiny bit of narrative in this one?
Yeah, go for it.
So Miles Turner was supposed to be traded was supposed to go to the Celtics in the offseason. That was the big word. And the rumor around the NBA was that they just at the end of the day, they bottom line didn't want him. Now, he probably would be absolutely perfect for their team right now. And there's a lot of people saying that. But, if you want to get a little bit after, a little frustration out of somebody, I'm not sure it's going to pay off for Turner. I'm just throwing it out there. Just because we love our little narratives. And that's all I got for that one. But it's not a huge narrative, just a little thing.
Yeah, I really doubt. I mean, again, I'm just looking ahead a little bit. I really doubt that by the end of this, I'm going to have too much of this game. I mean, is Kemba really cheap on Fanduel?
I mean, he's really cheap on DraftKings. I don't know what other price you'd want him at, but because this is to me, this is.
I want him at 3K. I mean,
But
that's an interesting question. Do you want him at 3K?
You know what pisses me off, by the way? How did I not? I just reminded myself. I got talked off of Jeff Teague after I got on.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
And it wasn't like he was amazing, but he put up he was plenty for that night. It would have definitely got me through the cash on everything. I just cannot believe myself.
Actually, I have an interesting question now that I'm bringing it up. Little Friday theory here. If anybody wants to think about this, maybe Bobby, you can come up with the answer to this question. So you kind of like Kemba Walker today, okay? Whatever reason. Let me ask you a question. What price would you like Kemba Walker if you could name any price for him to beat?
3K.
Well, why? If he's 3K, everybody's going to play him.
It's a good point, actually.
So what price would you put him at?
Oof. Let's wait. That's a great question. I think I might need to go through the rest of the games first, but I would say maybe 6,700.
Right. Interesting, right? I mean, like that's what you have to think about in a way when you're playing GPPs is boy, if he were only like cheaper, I would play him. But I mean, how much cheaper? You don't want that cheap, and then everybody's going to play him. I mean, you want to be able to have an edge over people.
It's interesting. It's a great question, and a lot of times it's a question actually that I think is easier answered, or at least I think of in relation to the higher price players, because there's certain guys where, if Luka's 11.4 versus 10.9, it really doesn't change that much when you're paying that much for somebody and you're expecting 60 out of them. That kind of thing, like I would rather Luka be 11.4 in those spots than 10.9 on those days, or Giannis, for example, or whoever the stud may be. What's really frustrating is we can't seem to get the studs lined up on the giant slates. They're all playing on these Thursday slates and the Tuesday slates, and the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we end up with not the right guys to pay up for anyway. But it's a really good question. It's a good way to think about things. So,
well, in other words, like even from ownership perspective, like it's something silly like things I think about is if I like a guy at 10.9. I would rather him be 11K.
Yeah, I get exactly. That's sort of what I was saying. Yeah. Totally agree.
All right, you want to move ahead?
Yeah, let's do it.
So I actually see like right now, as far as like my projections and stuff are going, like this immediately is like a much and not this even maybe they're even better games, but to me, like I can find plays from this Houston Toronto game like a lot easier than the Indiana Boston game for some reason.
Yep.
I want to delete that. Okay. All right. So I like the Toronto guys. And if Lowry is playing, I presume he's playing.
Yeah.
I like Lowry. I mean, I think he's really cheap. He's going to project really well. And first look at ownership, he doesn't look to be that popular. I don't know. I like him a lot. And then there's Siakam is back down to 7,900. I think he's fine. Van Vliet, I like less than Lowry. And maybe this could actually be one of those matchups where Boucher can kind of get going, because it's Houston doesn't really have bigs, and they could they could play small if they want. And even Anunoby. I mean, I don't know. I think I like everybody from Toronto. And on Houston, on the other hand, I don't think I like anybody. I kind of like Wall, I suppose, but I don't know. I kind of just like the Toronto guys.
So you answered my fear for this game. And people, look, again, we can get into the whole blowout conversation. Sometimes we get it wrong, all that stuff. This feels like a spot where, I think Houston might be the worst team in the NBA other than like Minnesota. Actually, they might be worse than Minnesota with the new coach. They're probably worse than that. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if we heard by the time this game's supposed to start, that the same guys aren't playing, like that, somebody's not playing or something's happening. It's weird. It's sort of throwing me off for this game a little bit because, John Wall's had a few games where he probably was going to smash, but they just got absolutely torched. They got torched by Cleveland. Cleveland had lost 10 in a row. I don't know how I don't know. It's hard for me to see this one staying particularly close, but it is the NBA. Things can happen. I guess what I would lean towards is Wall and Oladipo. I think the price on Oladipo is fair. I don't know how much. I don't know who's going to play. I honestly feel like they're going to tell us somebody's not playing by the time we get to this game coming around because it's happened most days, or at least we've had guys in midday questionable or things like that. So I don't know what happens with the Houston side. As of right now, I'm not especially interested in the Houston side, but one piece drops out and I am. I do think Wall and Oladipo, if you're going to play some Toronto pieces. And like you said, I think Lowry's the priority play. Siakam coming off of I don't know what happened in that game. I actually didn't watch that Miami situation, but it got to be maybe his worst game ever.
Nah, he does that a lot.
I don't think he's ever been 1 for 6 in 24 minutes and had 12 fantasy points. I've never seen that out of him. But that's weird.
So if here I have a take on this game, sort of, and a take on Houston in general.
Yeah.
So Cousins is being, he's going somewhere, I presume. I don't know exactly where. He clears physical. He's cleared waivers or whatever it is. Anybody can pick him up or do whatever. I mean, I don't know exactly what Houston has planned, but at some point, I think they're going to roll with this Patton guy. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Just to see. Mm-hmm. I think at one point they're gonna roll him out there, play him 25 to 32 minutes, and see what he can do. That's really their only choice at this point. And I don't know. Maybe they invest in this guy a little bit. I don't know. He joined him only. He picked him up. He picked him up for nothing. But I don't know. Maybe they give him a shot. I don't know. That's.
I agree with you, and I also think there's almost a 0% chance that PJ Tucker is not traded before the deadline. So, as we approach the deadline, when that comes up later on, if PJ Tucker is still a Rocket, we should be looking at guys to play as if PJ Tucker's not going to play, because there's no way he ends up a Rocket past the deadline.
I mean, Christian Wood, when he's back, he's going to be the big, right? So until then, I don't know. I think this is a good opportunity to give Patton a shot. I don't know.
You're right. The only problem is, do you want to make it look like PJ Tucker's washed and beat when you're about to trade him to a contender? Because the Milwaukee wants him, the Lakers want him. So I just don't. I think they're going to still run Tucker out as long as he's still a member of the team. But I like your overall thinking. I just don't know if it's going to be tonight. Okay. But I like the idea. I think there will be a time to catch them on that.
So your logic behind the Lowry and all these guys is why you don't like him as much as mostly the blowout.
Yeah, but individually I do like Lowry, Siakam, and Van Fleet. I would rank it Lowry, Van Fleet, Siakam personally, and then Anunoby. I do like Anunoby as well, but I mean, if I'm going to play 2 or 3 of these guys, I need to bring somebody from Houston, I think, to keep it close. And not only that, I think that the odds are really good that these guys succeed if they keep it close. Toronto's defense, by the way, oddly enough, as Sheets started talking about how good their defense was when they were playing terrible defense, they started listening to Sheets, and now they're playing good defense again. The rotations have been good. They've been playing much more to the old pace they played at. So Lowry, Van Fleet, then Siakam for me here. I think we can, again, later on today at 6:30 Eastern or whatever, whenever we come back on, we could probably figure out more then, because I just have a feeling with Houston, I don't trust anything until we get the actual lineup locked in, which we'll have before lock. All right. Ready for the next one?
Yes. So I have a question. I saw somewhere that Devin Booker was taken off the reserve list for the All-Star game.
Taken
Somewhat.
off?
What's that?
What? He's taken off the reserve list?
No. He was taken on to the team because someone can't play.
Yeah.
Right. So Booker is an All-Star now. That's what I'm saying.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were
I
saying.
have a question. Is Levine an All-Star or no?
Yes.
Okay. Because it was fun. I think I do remember this last year. This like exact matchup. I think where I think they were both snubbed or something, and then they both went off. Right? That was crazy. I don't exactly remember, but
yeah.
So anyway, they're both on the team. So it is what it is. So I think that I would like to play people in this game, but I don't see anybody that I'm going to. Maybe Wendell Carter Jr. again at 5,900, possible. The matchup's a little harder, I guess, but I don't know. Levine 9,600. I don't think this is exactly the spot I want to play him against Phoenix. So I guess my initial instinct is this game's kind of a pass. I guess Chris Paul would be my favorite at 7,500.
Yeah, I think Chris Paul makes a lot of sense, actually, assuming this game does, in fact, stay close. Chris Paul, Booker, Crowder, and Bridges are all in play for me, along with Ayton. I mean, they really are. I actually think that they're all decent plays. It's a good matchup. I know that everyone's tired of this Ayton thing, and I'm a lot right there with you. I'm just going to say this has been like the nut matchup. I mean, where did Embiid just have his career high? You know what I mean? This was Chicago. It's hard because Ayton really hasn't flashed that ceiling lately, but at 6,800, it's just I don't know. It sort of melts my brain why he wouldn't just destroy this front line. Anyway, I do like Chris Paul. I guess I would go in order. They're all like the same kind of guys for me. Like if I was mass entering, I would have all these guys like 10%. Now, if Crowder was announced in the starting lineup, I would immediately be much higher on Crowder. And Saric is questionable. And if Saric is out, I'll be much higher on Crowder. That sort of killed Crowder's minutes. And, you know, for a while we were getting a guy around 5K who was putting up 30 every single game. But whenever all these guys are healthy, especially if Kaminsky's starting, and then they're also playing Saric off the bench, and then you've got also it moves down Cameron Johnson, and he got hot the other day, so he played more minutes. It's just there's a lot of wing bodies. The only one who's got the absolute secure minutes and is going to play 30, 33 plus minutes in pretty much any close game is Mikal Bridges. And I have mild interest in all these guys, but they'd all fall into the sort of 10%er category. And by the way, I would extend that to Cameron Johnson as a wild card play. He's put up over 20 in his last 2 games. He's 3,500, which is crazy, but it makes sense because of what's been happening. He played 30 minutes the other night against Charlotte. That was a blowout. Oh no, it wasn't a blowout. That was a game that actually was close. I'm into taking shots on these guys. I just don't have any real strong take of which way to lean. I think that everyone's sort of on this big slate just falls in that 10% category. And then on the Bulls side, I think that we have to play some Wendell Carter, and I don't understand why no one will. He's got back-to-back 40 pluses. Sure, good matchups and all that. But this kid is a guy I've believed in for a long time. I know his price has gone up a tiny bit. It was up 100 more than it was the other day. The minutes for him, you can count on it being, we haven't projected at 28. My guess is assuming the game stays close, he gets 30 to 33, 34. So I actually think Carter is probably my favorite play over here. And if you want to use Temple for value, it's a weird game. I feel like you can stack this game too, or fade it, but it's like a mini stack with, pretty concentrated usage between Levine, Carter, and then Patrick Williams, who just does everything else. You can try and find something, and Temple, who sort of does the other things as well. You can sort of find those other pieces there. I will point out that Patrick Williams, I do think, is coming into his own a little bit. I don't think he's still like quite a fantasy play yet because he just won't shoot the ball that much. Very efficient, but he looks great to me on the court, and they're going to keep him out there as many minutes as he can handle. Other than Levine, he's the only one who I feel assured is going to play like 38 plus minutes, because I think Kobe White's lost some minutes to Satoransky at times. Temple's taken over some minutes. That's most of my interest. Look, it's a game, like I said, it's a stack or fade a little bit. It's a bunch of guys who I have 10% interest in. And the one guy who I think stands out as a potential completely unowned play is Wendell Carter Jr.
So I'm going to have to talk for a few minutes on the Sacramento-Detroit thing that's kind of set up. So there's an
Nothing
interesting.
on the Phoenix. Nothing else on the Chicago side.
No, I didn't really like. I really didn't like anything.
Okay.
So an interesting philosophical and basketball discussion comes up from time to time. This is like of the real like basketball thinkers out there with respect to pace, and the idea of when you have one team that's a really fast-paced team against a team that's a really slow-paced team, what tends to happen? Does it tend to go to the slow-paced team, tend to go to the fast-paced team? And what some people philosophically believe, at some point, some people thought actually that the home team, whoever was home for some reason, was able to dictate it. And I always felt as though that there's nothing a slow-paced team can do to stop a fast-paced team from upping the pace. And this goes back even to college, back when Marymount would run up and down the court, back in college and stuff like that. You just had whatever. And then I also always believed that when you had these type of situations, you had when a slow-paced team is playing a team that would let them run, they'd be like, wow, this is like freedom for us. We're just going to roll, right? And I say that as background only because we had this discussion yesterday, but we didn't really get into it too much about what was going to happen when a fast-paced Sacramento team played a slow-paced New York team. Well, let's go to Exhibit A. Final score, 140-121, okay?
By the way, I want to clear one thing, though. New York is not the same slow-paced team that they were before. And without Elfrid Payton, who you'd think would speed them up, it actually was the exact opposite what happened. All the other guards were flying up and down the court.
Right.
Anyway, sorry, keep going.
That was a bad take by me, by the way. I was saying, well, they're not going to be any faster with Derrick Rose on the court. Well,
it was quickly.
And when Derrick Rose wasn't on the court, though, they were freaking lightning.
Quickly was lightning.
Quickly was quick. Yeah. So with all that as background, and not that Detroit is a slow-paced team, I just want to kind of throw that out there, just for a theory. Now you got Sacramento against Detroit, and neither of these teams play any defense. And this total is 228. I mean, beats me. I don't, as I like to say, well, what is it for the second half? If I had to do anything, I'm telling you, I might actually go over to Nitrogen and fire up as I say in my part of the country, a few shekels on the over in this. And Sacramento's on a back-to-back, which, yeah, you could say that affects their offense, but you ain't gonna play defense on a back-to-back either. So that's my first take, and I think that every projection, whatever it is in this game, could be upped a little bit. I'm looking at just one side, for example. Like I see Sacramento, like they actually look. Darren Fox is obviously going to project really well. He's 7,700, which is kind of ridiculous. So he's going to be really, I presume, popular. I guess you're looking at Harrison Barnes might look okay, and Rashard Holmes, but they don't look that great. You know, Bagley looks okay. Hield looks okay. Halliburton, wow, he's 6,600. He looks kind of okay. But it's so funny. Like, then I go to the Detroit side, and then Detroit, like, they don't really give anybody any respect here. They give him, like, Jeremy Grant, just kind of a moderate projection. They're giving Mason Plumlee a little bit. I'm seeing these other guys like Josh Jackson and even the guys that we've been kind of screwing around with between Saban Lee and Dennis Smith Jr. and Sadiq Bey and Stewart, like all these other guys. They're making these guys like really like I think they're really disrespecting what Sacramento can do for you offensively. So I might pile into this game, especially from the Detroit side. If the Detroit guys are not going to get the respect that they deserve, I guess. And we'll see. I mean, how the ownership plays out or whatever it is. But this could be one of those where I don't want to say ignore projections, but I just I'll do like Bobby used to like give the Minnesotas like a little boost. You know, whoever's playing Minnesota. Maybe I'll just give this game just a little more of a boost than maybe other people are giving. I don't know. So that's my overall just 180 mile landscape. But coming back into it, I guess from Detroit, I know he hasn't been great, but I'll take another shot at Jeremy Grant. Josh Jackson, 6,400 seems like a lot, but 60 points is a lot also. And I think that's always in the cards, especially when he's going to be able to do what he does, which is like just go, and then you can make a choice. You can play some Dennis Smith Jr. if you want. You can play some Saban Lee, Plumlee, Bey, Stewart. I mean, I'm probably going to pile on to this stuff. And then Sacramento, sure. Darren Fox is clearly the best play. I mean, actually right now, before we get to other games, he's the best play I've seen so far on the slate. Barnes is only 5,500. It's not a guy I like to play all that often, but I don't know. And I guess you can always go back to Bagley, although he seems to have a minutes limit nowadays. So I don't know. What do you think of this whole thing?
So I actually think that the second, back-to-backs, I mean, it's pretty documented pretty well that they tend to hit the under more in general. But this is, I would agree with you. If I just saw this immediate over-under, I would have said, oh, I like the over on that one for sure. I'm not sure I love it as much as you do from a DFS perspective.
Okay.
I'll tell you why. De'Aaron Fox is going to be absolutely massive chalk. Now, there's a lot of good guards. I've already named Kemba and Lowry, who I've got circled, which means that I'm going to be playing them at least in some sort of form. De'Aaron Fox this year is averaging 32 fantasy points per game on back-to-backs. He's had games of 15, 14, and in 30-plus minutes, like not in no minutes either in some of these games. He had one game of 52, and then he had a game of 37 and a game of 33. I just want to throw that out there because that's relevant enough to me. It's 6 back-to-backs. You know what I mean? He hasn't hit anywhere near where we need him to hit. This is a great matchup. He's too cheap, etc. All these things are true, but they have other pieces too. So one thing that I think you could do to get different if you do want access exposure to this game, because I do think you want some exposure either way. Harrison Barnes, if he was 5.9, he fits. This is a great example of what we just talked about, Sheets. If Harrison Barnes was 5.9, like he has been, and if he wasn't coming off a 40 fantasy point game, he would be less than 1% owned tonight, or 1%ish owned. Instead, he's probably going to be 15 to 20% owned, and probably a cash game play for a lot of people because he had 40 in the last game, and that's basically it. We didn't know what they were going to even do with him. Also, we still don't know what's going to happen with him, so don't be surprised if you get late news on this one too. I mean, at least these games are early because Harrison Barnes I expect to be traded before the deadline too.
Wow, that's interesting.
I mean, they said it would look like that's what they were going to do. They were going to pull the Blake Griffin and Andre Drummond on him, but then they brought him back. That's just my personal take, and I think he could actually be a good use for a good team. Anyway, that's all side notes. What about taking a shot with Buddy Hield against a team that can't guard the perimeter at all? He's been really bad. Halliburton has been unbelievable. I have no reason to think that Buddy Hield, if he can get a few open looks, all he has to do is get going, and when he gets hot, he gets crazy hot. So he's kind of a guy I like a little bit, maybe off the board-ish. I also am curious to see if they do anything different on the back-to-back. You saw less minutes out of Bagley, which makes me think you're going to see plenty of minutes out of Bagley tonight. So I don't mind the Bagley play at 5.9. Another guy, if Bagley was 5.5 here, Sheets, I think you'd have double-digit ownership on him. Because he's 5.9, I don't think you will. So it's just sort of like flipping it, because I think Fox and Barnes are going to be popular. But you can definitely flip that over to Bagley and Hield. And I'm just saying that I do like Fox. I don't want to say it like I don't like him. I'm just, when a guy gets to be mega chalk on a tough slate, you want to try and find ways to fade him. Jeremy Grant, assuming he does play, which I assume he will, absolutely, this is the spot you want to take him. I don't know how to play Josh Jackson here because he got there without him at 6K. Even at 6,400, he was kind of thin in good matchups. And I believe in Josh Jackson's ceiling and all that stuff, but you're going to get less minutes tonight. You have Jeremy Grant back. You will have less than 0%. I mean, he's going to be less than 1% owned if you want a guy less than 1%. Unless somebody's out, unless Saddiq Bey is out, then Josh Jackson will be less than 1% owned. If Saddiq Bey is out, which he's questionable, then then you like Josh Jackson. Then we like Saban Lee. Then we like all these guys. But my personal first take is I'm going right back to it. I'm just going to count on these minutes increasing for Dennis Smith Jr. And I think he is the best play on the Detroit side along with Jeremy Grant. I think look, first of all, he's paid off this salary 2 back-to-back games now. And that was in 18 and 26 minutes. Why wouldn't his minutes continue to increase? They were competitive. They won that last. They didn't end up winning. They lost to New Orleans, right? Yeah, but they were competitive in that last game. And I don't see why, if you just traded for this guy, why not just keep up in the minutes? Play him, play Saban Lee together a little bit. I know I keep saying the same thing, but if they're going to directly split minutes, it does make it tricky with them, and that's sort of what's been happening. But if they can finally find a way to get them on the court at the same time, if we get Saddiq Bey out, or if maybe they may just come to their senses and maybe don't play as much Svi and Ellington, who are not part of their future, they're going to get a game with these guys together. I'm leaning Dennis Smith, but I will have some Saban Lee exposure also. I really think people this is our, like the other night on Dennis Smith. I mean, the only lineups that I had that cashed all had Dennis Smith as my point guard. And of course I took him out of all the big buy-ins because you just couldn't do it, was what I kept telling myself. Oh, you just can't do it on this slate. Well, I think you can do it today. So I like Dennis Smith Jr. That's where I'm at, along with Jeremy Grant.
Yeah.
You need to answer that?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
No Plumlee for me, but I totally get it. I just think there's a lot of good plays.
Yeah. So just so you know, I'm in. I bet on the over in that game.
All right.
And hey, you know what? You gotta root, because if I lose this, I might have to get a second job, because I'm in for a full. How much is Bitcoin now? 46,000. I'm in for $46, but I'm only laying $1.05. So that's good news. Good news.
Please, can we just not talk about Bitcoin on this show? At least when it went down, it actually was like the best day I've had in a while. I mean, seriously, like a life-altering experience I've had with Bitcoin. And I know guys who literally were unsuccessful poker players who have tens of millions of dollars from Bitcoin, just from literally a few $1,000s when they were trying to play. It's really depressing. All right. Want to move over to the Clippers and Memphis?
Yes.
Well, we just saw this matchup, right?
I don't know if we did. I mean, I didn't see it.
Last night they played, didn't they?
Yeah, I know. I don't think I was paying attention. That was why. Oh, that's right. I asked if we wanted to play Morant, Kawhi, and you said no. But Morant was going to have. What happened in the game? I didn't have anybody in the game.
The game, it was interesting. I actually don't know what the final score was, but I believe that the what's it called pulled it out.
I really hope that. Oh, thank you. I was hoping Batum didn't smash. He didn't. Okay, good.
Yeah. Memphis destroyed him.
Really?
Yeah. Brandon Clark still didn't get the minutes, I thought, but that might have been because of the blowout. Yeah, they just massacred him. They beat him by 28.
Wait a second. Hold on a second there. So I know that. So Kawhi Leonard's a good. I heard is a really good defender. And I know that, as you mentioned, I know who you were talking about yesterday. You were talking about maybe Patrick Beverly yesterday, right? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What about I was saying Beverly? Yeah, because the minutes were getting more secure. But I mean, they got trampled.
But John Morant's 7,100.
It's pretty cheap.
He's 7,100, man.
Yep.
The only thing about John, not the only. We said this all last year too. I mean, the bad news is the guy really can't shoot. I mean, he just really can't.
You know what's odd though is actually the numbers would disagree with you. Not this year. This year he hasn't been able to shoot, but he actually shot the ball pretty well last year and in college as well.
The good news is he's got an just insane finishing package around the rim. I mean, he gets this stuff going on that's like straight out of skills training. I mean, like just awesome stuff. Not to mention forget about the assist for a second, but he gets the rebound. He can rebound too. So how many minutes did Morant play in the blowout yesterday?
He only played 29, so that makes me feel like a little bit better about the idea of using him today.
Yeah, I got to tell you this. I'll play him over Fox.
There you go. So that's what you get in the conversation. You got for me, it's the Ja, Fox, Lowry discussion. And you can throw DSJ at a different price in there because
that's a great point. Those three. I think that's an excellent point.
And they're all guards. So you're gonna first take is guards probably in the utility today for me. Sorry, keep going, Sheets.
The only thing I would like from LAC would be Kawhi, but not any big hurry to play him. And then I would, you know what? I don't know if the back-to-back is the right idea, but you know who I played yesterday? I mean, he ended up sort of getting there. I did end up playing some Justice Winslow. He played 20 plus minutes or whatever it is. I mean, he made 5X. He didn't murder me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what kind of action he'd get on a back-to-back, but you were right in with respect to that. I mean, he's not just some scrub. You know, they want to get him in there. So I don't know. Maybe he's all right at 3,700.
Pretty soon he's going to become a pretty big part of these lineups. I mean, pretty big part of their thing. Like it's weird to me because I think that I don't think Dylan Brooks or Kyle Anderson are as important to their team as Brandon Clark and Justice Winslow will be. Definitely Brandon Clark, but Justice Winslow might be a reach on my part, but I don't think so. I actually think that with Winslow, if he gets back to himself, he's got a terrific future in the NBA, and he's also an awesome defender and does everything the right way. Really, really just a great all-around player. The thing that worries me about playing anybody from this team is you saw, last night they put up 122 points and literally nobody got there. The natural guy I'd want to play the most ahead of Ja would probably be Joe Val, but I don't play Joe Val on back-to-backs. He's had a couple good spots this year where he's been good on back-to-backs, but historically he's famously bad for being bad on back-to-backs. And it makes me nervous, especially when they have a full healthy team. And I'm trying to find a justification to play him because I think he'll smash this front line. He played 24 minutes last night, Sheets. That's a good sign. And he scored 40 fantasy points against the same exact team. Like I said, he would dominate this team. So I'm still open to it more than I can believe I'm saying. And then it's odd. It would be odd I think you might it's a good thing it's an early game. After losing by 27, my guess is they probably do go back out there. But remember, Kawhi Leonard has played 2 out of the last 60 back-to-backs that he's been able to play. Not like he never plays them. So just keep in mind that the Clippers might sit somebody because it's definitely possible they will. And if they do, the other one of these guys becomes an awesome play. And another guy who's actually in play anyway, but would become an awesome play if one of those guys is out, although you worry about him a little bit on the back-to-backs. But if you had no Paul George, I think Batum, whether they play Beverly, whoever basically is in the starting lineup for this team would be a really, really strong play, in my opinion, at these prices if one of these guys were to sit. But assuming everybody playing, I guess it's Ja and Jonas for the most interest for me. And I do think, though, that I don't know if it's the right slate to do it. We don't have a lot of guys I love spending all the way up on, but Kawhi and George are reasonable. We had better options yesterday, so I sort of sloughed them off, and I'm glad I did. But I don't know. I'm not getting there at the moment.
Okay, want to move on then?
Yep.
All right, so I refuse to turn this into a sports betting show. All right, I'm not doing it. I already put in a bet, and then one sports bet for me is more than I'll put in in a month. Okay, so I'm not going to do a second one. And I'm looking at Utah, Miami. And I'm staring up at the over-unders off on the screen, and I see the implied total. And I see that I don't know what's right or wrong, but I see them at their over-unders at 218. And then I'm looking at Phoenix, Chicago is a 216. I can't imagine a world where the Utah-Miami game scores more than the Phoenix-Chicago game. So I don't know what that means. I don't know whether that means I'm supposed to bet the Phoenix-Chicago over or the Utah-Miami under. Or maybe I'm just an idiot.
I figured it all out. I figured out your issue with Utah. I just don't think you've watched them play. I just think that's it. I think that's my only answer for you.
Oh no, I have. Just my issue is that I think this game is 99-90. That's just my guess. That's my issue. This game. I don't know how Miami's going to do anything. I don't know how anybody's going to do anything this game. So I don't know. I'm off of it for let's start with this. I'm off of it for fantasy. So why don't you tell me what I'm supposed to think about this game?
I think Gobert is in play at 7,200. I think that, he's put up basically 29.5 or more, in 500 straight games or whatever. He seems like a virtual lock to be in that 30 to 35 to 55 range, depending on how things go, even in a seemingly bad matchup. Although, again, I'll remind everybody, slower the matchup, Gobert tends to play better. Not always, but tends to. I do think that, Mike Conley was awesome the other night against the Lakers. I actually played him that night because of the All-Star snub thing. He just played excellent, and they blew the hell out of the Lakers. So I think probably, the fact that, at least that Utah has to travel should keep this game closer. I would bet Utah to cover this spread just to turn it back into a spread.
Possibly. I don't have a spread call. I just have this, I guess, I don't know about the bias, but I know Utah's really good. And Miami plays really good defense. I just, the whole game
historically, allegedly. I would say Miami's defense this year has not been anywhere near the same as the past years. They've given up 116, 108. They had 96, but that was to the Lakers without Davis. 118, 112, 118. These are the scores they've given up. Okay. So I'm just saying, Oh no, sorry, those are their scores. 125, 120, 110. Actually, it's even worse. And honestly, Miami's been really bad. So Utah is now covered in 27 of 29 games, the NBA record. And I would just say until that really starts to change, I would just keep betting Utah. Everybody who thinks there's no edge, like Sheets, in sports betting, sometimes you catch on to a trend and you just ride it out. And the people who caught on to this one when it was 17 of 19 have made an absolute fortune. So because you just win every time. So I may actually just put money on this one. And it's going to bite me sometime, but I'm going to keep rolling with it. But you're right. From a DFS perspective, it's hard to have a ton of interest here. Especially we have Hero and Bam questionable.
I'll tell you who I like. Now that I know
Kelly Olynyk.
Instead of being a little baby, I'm going to tell you who I like. I still don't like anybody from Miami. Okay, but on Utah, I'll throw two guys. One guy you mentioned already. I'll throw Mike Conley out there as maybe probably my favorite on Utah, if that means anything. And then I'll just, like you said, 27, 29. How about you just keep playing Jordan Clarkson until further notice? So I'll throw him out there. So it would be Conley or Clarkson would be my two Utah guys.
Yes, I understand it. I think that Conley would be my preferred guy in those between those two, but I hear you. Yeah, not a fun fantasy game. Ready to move on to the next one?
Yeah. So the next one, I have Atlanta OKC, the next one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So
I like Trae Young, although it feels expensive. I like Capela, both from Atlanta. I like both those guys. Not much else. OKC, we always have to see who's playing, right? I have Horford as not playing. Is that accurate?
I don't know why he's supposed to be out, but yeah, I must have missed something on.
Yeah, actually on DraftKings out too. He will not play in Friday's game. Okay. So
I don't know if he's playing back to back tomorrow. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
With him out, then we're back to the usual. We're back to Muscala Roby. And I have to say, 8,800 seems like a lot for Shea, but maybe it isn't. Against Atlanta likes to give up points, and Shea's been doing it, man. And with Horford out, it's more points for him, I suppose. So I like it, man. I think 8,800. I don't know how many people are going to play him at 8,800, but it definitely looks okay. Roby, Baisley, Maladon, Kendrick Williams, Dort again. I don't know. These guys are all looking like double-digit ownership plus at the beginning of the day, though. I don't know.
Yeah, because they're down a man and they've got a great matchup.
Yeah, I guess so. So maybe I'll look again. Maladon, I guess Maladon might be next, but I'll stick with Shea, Roby, Maladon. Roby always feels wrong when I'm actually watching him play. Like, he looks like a great play, and then I play him, and then he's on the court, and I'm like begging that he makes a layup when he gets the ball. I don't know. It's kind of weird. But he looks to be okay. So that's where I'm at. I'm at with Trae and Capela, and again, I have no problem ever playing the two of them together because of the way they run together. And OKC, and nobody else from Atlanta, and then OKC, I guess Shea.
Yeah, I think this is a weird spot. I really do. I think that there is somebody's going to get there. I maybe what I do is side with the Baisleys and the Dorts of the world or something like that. I know Baisley has been terrible. He was 0 for 8 in his last game. It's weird. It's hard to have 10 rebounds and 11 fantasy points. That's really you don't see that every time. In fact, I don't know if I've ever seen that before. I actually think Maladon is a really strong play, just because of how bad these guys are against guards. I agree. Everybody always says there's a player I never get right. I don't really feel that way with a ton of players, but with Shea, I do feel that way. I literally never get him right. Never, ever, ever, ever. And it's not just that I don't play him when he's highly owned. I'll try him then too a lot of the time. It's just I didn't play him the other night on DraftKings. I played him on Fanduel, and he went just completely berserk in that San Antonio game. The opportunity is definitely there for him to have a monster performance. 88 does feel like a lot. I think that this might be one we have to see, wait until later. As of right now, I would rank the value part as Maladon, then Kenrich, And then after that, I would go probably Baisley, Roby, Muscala. Oh, sorry, Dort, Baisley, Roby, Muscala. And they are all in play. Muscala, maybe, look, not a fun play, not a guy I usually recommend, but again, just really, really cheap. Atlanta just doesn't want their bigs just don't want to go outside in general. And you're hoping he hits some threes against his former team. That's all I really have on that side. And I think Clint Capela is going to have 20 rebounds tonight. I think that we got off to a bad start with Capela the other night, and then they ended up blowing him out. I do want to put, it's funny because Capela, it felt like a terrible play after the first few minutes because it's his first rotation. I think he had one fantasy point, but it's because nobody missed any shots and he's the rebounder. Everybody was making every shot from the outside, and then they blew him out. But still in 21 minutes, he put up 27 fantasy points. He basically assuming the game stays close, I feel like should be a lock for 40. I really do, or close to a lock for 40. And I think that there's 70-point upside on that one. I also think John Collins has tremendous upside here. And if Cam Reddish is out again, and Danilo Gallinari doesn't make 10 threes like he did the other night. Do you see that game, by the way? You see that 10 threes he made, 10 for 12?
It was amazing.
Unbelievable. He puts a 55.5. Woo. And unfortunately, of course, I played Kevin Huerter, not Danilo Gallinari that night. I would still encourage people to do the same tonight. If there is no Cam Reddish, I think you can play Kevin Huerter. But I don't think these are must-have spots. It's mostly if you want to take 3 or 4 of the OKC guys. I do think that the Capela is a guy I want to prioritize, and so far might be my favorite play at center.
Here's a very interesting question, philosophically and on this slate, as we transition to the Golden State game. You take a guy take Trey, Curry, Lillard. We could debate them against each other, but you have 3 10K guys. If you played 2 of those, would you rather play 2 of those or those 3 7K guys?
No, I'd much rather play the 7K guys.
Yeah, so that's an interesting thing.
I would much rather play 7K guys over Trey.
Okay.
I could, and I think I have a good explanation for it too. Even actually, I would even include Shea in this category. I would be shocked if at least one of those guys isn't in the same fantasy point range as Trey tonight. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And if I'm going to pay that much for a guy at a 10K for Trey, I want to have the upside of 70, because these 7K guys definitely have 50 plus point upside, including Kemba, who just put up 50, who's 62.
So you feel as though, as we get into this next game, you feel as though, let's not just debate Curry versus Lillard yet, but you prefer Curry Lillard, for example, over Trey.
Yeah, I think pretty consistently, we know Trey is always going to get the usage, and I really I don't want to get into how much he bothers me watching him play sometimes, and how he literally steals assists. He yells at his teammates if they don't shoot the ball when he passes it to them. Drives me nuts. But look, you could just go through a simple all season long. I don't think he's gotten to 70, whereas Dame and Curry have done it multiple times, and that's enough of a tiebreaker for me, especially because they're also in slow. Dame's matchup is going to be, Curry's matchup is going to be much faster. And Dame is a little bit of a revenge matchup from the postseason where he might have to do it all against a tough team. So I see them as having more of the need to go off than I see for Trey in a game they should control.
All right. So in the Golden State Charlotte game, I do think Curry's standing out as a good play. It's a matter of prioritizing. I will say this. Just a couple of observations. Curry hasn't felt ceiling-ish in a little while. Maybe that's just my illusion, but I will say that I prefer him over Levine, for example. Strangely, Levine might be actually more consistent nowadays, but for 50 plus. But I still have that. I don't know whether this is what you were getting at, but I still kind of have in the back of my head these Curry 70-point things that are in the offing. You know what I mean? That he's got that shot to do that. Mm-hmm. So that's really all I had from Golden State. I wasn't really going to get to anybody else, but maybe I should, because it is going to be a fast-paced game. And then on the Charlotte side, I don't know. I'll let you maybe talk me into Miles Bridges. LaMelo, I feel about LaMelo very similarly from a price perspective, the way I feel about the other 8,700 guy, Shea. right? It feels like it's a lot, but Shea is actually like a much greater amount of usage relative to his team than LaMelo has. You know what I mean? Like LaMelo's on a team with actual good players.
Yep.
With Hayward and.
Well, hold on. I actually I wanted to say real quickly, Trey has a much better supporting cast than LaMelo does.
I didn't mean Trey. I meant Shea.
I mean, sorry. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yes. Keep going.
Shea. I was comparing the two prices, Shea and
my bad.
LaMelo. So I don't think I'm going to get to LaMelo at 8,700. I'm afraid to look at Fanduel and see back at 8,075 or something, which case I'll probably have to play him again. But at 87, I don't think. I mean, he rates to be an okay value, but nothing off the wall. As a matter of fact, he looks the same as all these other 8,700 guys that are kind of uncomfortable. And on the other parts of Charlotte, like I said, maybe Bridges. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, first thing I think is that I really love some parts of the Charlotte side of this. I love Gordon Hayward. 6,700 in this type of matchup is just too cheap. Now his usage and everything he hasn't put up these massive games lately, but the usage has still been pretty good. 25% each of the last two games. Had the tough game against the Utah ended up as they tend to do, ended up blowing him out. And you've got but he played well against Phoenix the other night. Well-ish, but he's still he only put up 37, but he's taking enough shots. The assist numbers are reasonable. The rebound rate is pretty high. It's just he's not making the threes right now. And if he makes a few threes, you're in great shape. And this matchup is better than any of the matchups he's faced recently, and he's cheaper than he's been in a long time. I think he's a terrific play at 6,700. Early on look, I would play him in cash. I think PJ Washington is your awesome play of the night. First of all, I love him in this matchup. And the Zeller questionable, which I think is a legit questionable, it would just open up everything for PJ Washington. You don't need to play a traditional big against these guys. The Bismack Biyombo minutes may dwindle down to near nothing. He may sure as well get him again because they played well the other night with him, but that was because they wanted to match up with Ayton. I think there's a chance that you might just see PJ Washington jump from like 30 to 36 minutes, and you might see PJ Washington just go nuts against a pretty weak front line overall in the season. Now they're a little bit healthier than they have been, but I just sort of like him there. And I do think that if Zeller's out also, you can give Bridges a bump because you might see Bridges on the same court at the same time for a while as Washington, which might get him up to 30 minutes. And at 30 minutes, if Bridges gets there, 4,500 is too cheep for him.
Especially, what's interesting is a slate view. I mean, I'm looking at just one projection system off on the other screen, and I don't know if you usually figure this out instinctively before I can look at it visually. Is that this slate is just packed with good guard plays.
Yeah, I said that already. I said that.
Yeah, and you know what? There's nothing at the forward position. Like the forwards are really, really tough. Like my top rated forward we're gonna get to in a second, who I don't even want to play. And then like the guy maybe like something like Hayward or PJ Washington, like you were saying.
Yeah.
Being forward eligible. Well, you have to play with forward. Makes a lot of sense. I mean, I'm looking at point guard, and point guard only. You know what I mean? Like it's
right.
It's interesting in that respect.
Yeah, and I have a little bit of a different take on the Curry thing than you've done for his recent games. He's been incredible lately. He shot 7 for 21, 1 for 11 from 3, and still put up 48 in the last game. He put up 60 the game before that, 58 before that, 56 before that, 50 before. He's only had one. He's only had one non-48 or higher in the last 10 games. Oh, I guess he had one more against San Antonio in that blowout win, but that was because of.
I guess so.
So I feel like he's to me, looking at this matchup too, it feels like you should expect him to get somewhere between 50 and 75, and that's good enough for me.
Would you play him instead of Lillard or no?
So we'll get to that, and let's get to when we cover the Lakers thing, because I think it's an interesting. I don't know. It's interesting. I'm stuck a little bit with that one because there's a lot of. I also think on the look, it's a good situation for Draymond. It sucks because I hate paying this price for a guy who shoots the ball 5 times a game, but he's put up he hasn't even put up the full triple double, and he still had 45 and 47 the last 2 games. I hate doing it. If there's a team that I would picture him thriving against, especially, it would be Charlotte because the way they play. especially while LaMelo's playing, because they pump it up and they play fast, and so does Golden State. I think all these guys are actually probably better plays. People won't want to play them because their prices. The one guy who's kind of interesting, Kevin Looney has gotten 20 and 17 minutes in the last 2 games. I would assume he'd get around that sort of range, but it's hard to know. I don't know. He's 3K. That's the reason I brought him up. And I'm interested in a guy at 3K who's going to play 20 minutes, and it tends to be okay enough per minute. But that's the only. Do we really need the value? Probably not. At least not as of yet. So mostly it's just Curry to run back with my love for Gordon Hayward and PJ Washington. I don't think I'm doing the LaMelo thing, but I wouldn't fault you like crazy for it. It does feel like you're giving up something by playing him over Shea. I mean, LaMelo's getting to the price point where he kind of needs to do one of those crazy games. And, if you look at his monster games this year, like he's not going to shoot 14 for 27 in this game. You know what I mean? That's just a lot to ask for from this guy. And I mean, even the last game, he was incredibly efficient and really good against Phoenix, 7 for 11, 8 assists, 41 fantasy points. This is not going to do it, So I don't think you can. I think he's a guy who's always a great tournament play, but gets more ownership than he should. So ends up not being as good of a tournament play, if that makes any sense. Yeah. And other than that, I'm ready to move on if you want to.
Yeah, you had mentioned before the last Laker game that you were expecting the Lakers to kind of shake things up a little bit. And although it didn't necessarily work out in for their win-loss in the last game, it certainly tried something. And you even mentioned a little more Marc Gasol, among other things. But the thing that I noticed is that they did start Talen Horton-Tucker.
They started Markieff Morris.
And what's that?
They started Markieff Morris.
I mean, Markieff Morris. Well, yeah, but the difference between the two of those is that Markieff Morris is not going to be maybe 60% owned tonight. So
he right now I have him as projected as the highest owned player on the slate.
Markieff Morris?
Yeah.
Interesting. So
I don't think I'm a pick, but I'm just saying that's where I've got him right now.
So I will. I was going to start by highlighting Talen Horton-Tucker, right? So. Okay. Talen Horton-Tucker he had the benefit of being part of the garbage time closing, right?
Are you assuming, just real quick, sorry, Sheets, are you assuming Schrodier's out?
For the purposes of this discussion, yeah.
I think he's going to play.
Oh, well, never mind.
My instincts is that he's going to play. Like, they're getting crushed every game. Word is that he looks okay. He's projected on the sites, the 2 sites that I'm looking at right now.
Okay, fair enough then. Because if he were going to sit and they would start Talen Horton-Tucker again, even though like the 30 minutes wouldn't be expected. I mean, he could still be a really, really good play at 25 minutes. That would be that's all I was going to say. The Markieff Morris, he's rating to be, I'm talking about the Lakers first. He's rated to be by the second best, value play I saw. For me, it was going to be Tucker if what's name was out, but Morris too. I don't know if I want to play Markieff Morris though, if he's going to be that highly owned. So you could talk me on or off of that when it's your turn. LeBron, Lillard. I think we've done this before, right? I mean, just play them both and figure out the rest. And while that might not be optimal on a slate with all these great 7K guys today, the hell if I'm not going to have at least one lineup with it. So I'm gonna try that. On the I do like Lillard. I mean, he's only 10-1, whatever. Only 10-1, and yeah, the matchup is tough, but he's still gonna have 1,000% usage rate. And I don't know, man. I think I like him more than. I shouldn't say. I think I like him about the same as Curry. I think they're pretty equal. I think I like him more than. Definitely like him more than Trey. So yeah, I mean, like you're the Lillard / LeBron / motivation whisperer. I mean, what do you think? You're gonna play these guys or no?
So it's tempting also because you leave yourself some room to maneuver late. That's a big part of the temptation for me. I think Lillard is going to be under-owned. So I'm kind of interested in that. The usage is okay. So look, I'm just going to read his usage. These are absurd numbers. This is the last number of games: 36, 39, 41, 43, 35, 41, 34, 36, 36. And you can imagine that might only be higher against the Lakers, where they might need him a little bit more. So from that perspective, yes, I have an interest in Lillard. I think Lillard and Curry are really close. I really do. I think that I feel a little bit safer with Curry for some reason, but I don't know that that's even correct. I think it's pretty close between them. And if you're going to do that, I do think playing the value of Morris if they do start him again. Now, it's kind of weird because, he played 21 minutes even the game before when they didn't start him against Washington. But they lost those games. They got absolutely dismantled by Utah. It's kind of hard to get a feel for. I watched that game with my family, and it was hard to get a feel for how much Morris would have played had the game not blown out. I honestly don't know. I think it might have been similar, or there's a chance it might have only been like 22 minutes if it was close. I don't know what they were going to go with down the stretch. It's not like they need him to match up for any reasons, but it did seem like, early on, everybody thought he would sort of fill in for Davis, and then he didn't, and they've been terrible. So then I still think you could see more shakeups in this lineup and the rotations. With Schroeder coming back, maybe we're overthinking not playing Schroeder.
Yeah.
And without Davis, look, about half the time he's been over, a little more than half the time actually, he's been over 36 fantasy points. That makes a lot of sense to me at 5,900, obviously. LeBron, it just comes down to, do we need to spend that much? He does fit the forward mold. We got small forward eligibility. He's probably projected to be right there as the highest scoring player on the slate. And I would even say that I think Lillard's projections are a little low, and I think his projected ownership is lower than it should be. But it's because we have so many guards in play today. So it's really about weighing your type of builds. The way that I build, like, let's just say I was doing 2 lineups on DraftKings, 2 big lineups. I think what I would do is I'd put Lillard and Curry, if I'm going to play them, I'd try to get them in the same one together. And even look at depending on what value opens up, maybe you could even throw LeBron into that same lineup. But the reason I say that is because I like mixing these 7K guy. I prefer sort of the more balanced build as of right now, but I don't know what's going to open up. But if you get enough value, you can play the Lillard, Curry, LeBron thing. But you're giving up on, Kemba, Lowry, Fox. I mentioned I like DSJ, John Morant, Mike Conley. These are all guys who I have as pretty high level plays tonight that you'd have to sort of forego. And while you might get the 60 out of Lillard, you might get the 60 out of Curry, you might get the 60 out of LeBron, I think some of those guys are going to get at least near 50, and it will balance out your builds. And then you instead of playing Markieff Morris and hoping for 25 or 20, you can play, the 6,700 guys like Hayward who can go out there and get you 45. You know what I mean? So it's really going to come down to how you want to construct your lineups. And if I try to spread it out, if I really like those guys pretty close to equal, but I mean, my initial instinct, because I'm not crazy about the incredible value on this slate or anything, is to try to play the 7K guys ahead of these high guys at first look.
I think that I think that's where I'm going to end up gravitating myself. I think building with, nobody lower than 4,500 and nobody higher than like 9K or something like that.
Yeah.
Would,
sorry, go Sheets.
Yeah, I think that might be where I end up.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
And one other thing to consider in this game, and well, I'll tell you what, we definitely got Carmelo right the other day. Took the most shots he's taken in any game that Lillard's played in this season against Denver.
Yep.
Those of you who don't believe in any kind of narratives, you're idiots.
Exhibit A.
And this fits the category of Carmelo, who loves to go personally toe-to-toe with LeBron. The minute projection for Carmelo, I will immediately bump up to 27 instead of 24, because I'm just pointing out the only way that it stays at 24 is a blowout situation, in my opinion. All of these other games where he's been in like that have been some form of blowout or foul trouble. And I really think that he'll play more minutes, especially with the night off that they had and going head to head against LeBron, against this former kind of team and a team that didn't really want to keep him for their championship run. This guy will take shots, and that's all I'm asking for. So at 4,800, he's sort of a little bit off the board. And then you have, I did want to mention this game, Simons, I have some interest in if you're going to go for the stars and scrubs thing. But I think Gary Trent Jr., even though he's been really bad, is going to be on the court for just 100 million minutes. So I'm just saying, if you're going to play those guys, you can kind of consider, maybe you wouldn't consider Carmelo with Lillard, but you might consider a Gary Trent, or maybe if you're just going to play LeBron, you could run it back with Carmelo on the other side instead of Lillard or something like that. I don't think that's the worst idea in the world. There's not a lot of those high 4K guys that I absolutely love tonight. So, or even low 5K for that matter at the forward spots. So Carmelo is an off the board play that I have some interest in.
You know, it might be worth revisiting is ranking these 7K point guards. Like Morant, Lowry, Fox. I guess those. I mean,
well, I think Fox is the number one, but I think because of ownership, maybe you could argue that someone else should be number one.
Chris Paul.
Was that?
Maybe Chris Paul in there too.
Chris Paul would be in the same category. Yeah, I think that if I had, it's tough. So I would go. I mean, Fox is the cash one. That's the one you're playing if you're playing the cash one. I like Lowry. I would go Fox, Lowry, Morant. I have a feeling Patrick Beverly may. I don't know whether he plays or not today. Fox, Beverly, Morant. No, Fox, Beverly, Kemba, Morant, Paul. That sort of order, something like that. But I also like DSJ. I know he's off the board, and I kind of like Saban Lee as well in that same thing. And Mike Conley, 6,100. So there's a lot of guys we can choose between. You know, as of right now, I'm trying to pick between them. It's a little tricky because I still don't know who's going to play in all these games. You know what I mean? We don't know on the back-to-back what Sacramento does. You know, and I mentioned the Fox struggles on back-to-backs this season with one exception. But he still is the guy who stands out the most to me. And I think everybody's, rightfully so, even to some extent, is going to be in love with OKC value. Like I said about the Spurs the other night, not everybody needs to get there. And only one guy got there, and that was DeJounte Murray. Everybody else, you didn't need any of them. And this feels like a similar type of situation, except for a higher scoring game with a little bit more expensive players. So no great value early in the day, but we'll probably will have some later. But the Jeremy Grants and the forwards I'm looking at, the Gordon Haywards, and I prefer Hayward over Grant, by the way. But they're close. But that's what you can do if you build out those middling lineups instead of having to force in. And I'm not saying Markieff Morris is a bad play or Kenrich Williams is a bad play, but instead of forcing in some we'll call it questionable value, you can play these guys instead. And it does get interesting, like when you see Darius Baisley at lower ownership than Isaiah Roby, you start to wonder, am I really approaching this right? By playing, are people really right when they play Roby over Baisley?
Baisley. I was just considering that as I was screwing around with the dummy lineup about whether to play somebody like Baisley or Roby.
Yeah, and you have to deal with high, like, all over the place results. Baisley has been terrible, but so has Roby lately. And at least Baisley's an NBA player who is a part of their future. Isaiah Roby wasn't, he could have been working in some other industry before the season started. They just needed big men. Although I actually kind of like Roby's game a little bit, but I just think when you think about things like that, and you think, God, is Isaiah Roby really going to be like significantly higher owned than Darius Baisley at 300 less? That doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
I would like to announce, by the way, that Hideki Matsuyama made an eagle.
Ooh, look at you! You must be doing pretty good.
I'm going to check that in a second. He's -4 now.
That's pretty amazing. He had a triple and a double too.
That's -4 for the day, by the way.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. He's got a triple and a double, and he's at -4. Oh, Sheets! I'm gonna really wish I'd played golf, aren't I?
All right. So you want to go over Fanduel?
Yeah, we'll just do it real quick, I think.
Well, because right off the bat, even though Fanduel's stalling for me, my fear, not fear, but my suspicion was realized with respect to point guard, and that Fanduel obviously does not have a lot of respect for LaMelo, because he is my favorite play on Fanduel. He is 7,600 over there.
You guys.
And there are other. I mean, look, there are other good 7K guy goes over there as well, right? There's Fox is still 7,800 over there. Morant is 7,200 over there. I like we talked about. I like Morant. I don't like Lowry over there though. Lowry's up to 8K. He's at 8K over there. Okay. So I like Ball, Fox, Morant, and then pay up for lower.
So I love I like Ball a lot better over here for two reasons. One is that he's obviously significantly cheaper and the salary caps are more lenient. But I also like I like the fact that he gets a couple steals every game, pretty much. You know what I mean? And that's going to get you 6 fantasy points most of the time. And yeah, it's the same guys. Other than that, I mean, Chris Paul, Conley, Fox, Ja, all the guys we talked about, even Kemba. I think it's interesting that people are projecting Kemba to be so highly owned on DraftKings, but so low owned on Fanduel because of all these other guys. Kobe White stands out over here at 5,700. Dennis Schroeder, who we mentioned. There's a lot of good plays, but I would still side with the main guys we talked about. And if Fox is going to be higher owned on Fanduel, on DraftKings than Fanduel, yeah, I mean, you know, maybe like Fox and Melo still should probably be the chalk here. I'm looking at the other prices here. Lowry's price is going to make nobody play him, but he probably is not going to get a crazy amount of ownership on DraftKings either, because he just never ever does. And let me see real quick. I didn't notice Curry's at 10K, so he's completely reasonable. Lillard at 10.3, completely reasonable. But probably, you know, the first thing I would look at is playing the chalk guys, and then there's you can pivot off of them so easily by playing Ja, by playing Chris Paul with one of them. But you know, if I had to project the most, I'd pick Fox and Ball as being my favorite. I won't play Maladon at 4,500 over here. I think it's a waste to do that with wasting a really good position with a lot of upside on a guy who's 4,500, and even if he gets to 30 or something, is going to be hard. Whereas with Kobe White, at least he can get to 40 plus probably if he's at 5,700, and Schroeder certainly can as well.
Shooting guard, I like, again, depending on the Schroeder thing or whatever. If Schroeder's out and Taylor Tucker starts again, at 3,900, I like him.
You're not going to know that information, people, by the way. So, I mean, most likely you won't know that. So just beware that, you know, you'd be taking a huge risk on a guy who might play like 10 minutes.
Yep. Yeah. So Shea looks like a good play over here. And then in a similar way to LaMelo being cheaper over here is his running mate, Terry Rozier is cheaper over here too. So he's 7K and playable. Those are my top. I mean, you can play Van Vliet a little bit more over here. And then you could, again, he's projected right now to be like the 10th best shooting guard, but you know, just hashtag keep it real. I'll go back to Josh Jackson at 5,700.
Yeah, you can embrace the entire extremely high variance play of Terry Rozier, who is nothing. It was a complete tournament play, and is going to have a cash game ownership.
Think so?
Without a doubt, he's 7K, and he's put up. He's put up 46, 52, and 59, 52, 52, 44. Yeah. But then in the last two games, he's put up 23 and 20. That's what you get with Terry Rozier, and he doesn't distribute. He doesn't do much but score. So that's what you're getting with him for the most part. I mean, he can get you a few assists and a few rebounds, but you're not going to get double digits of either anytime soon. My favorite plays are SGA and Lou Dort. I know that they're the chalk, but they are the best plays in my opinion. I do like Van Vliet a little better over here because I don't need to. I don't have other guards cheaper everywhere on like I do on DraftKings, and I think 8,200 in relation to a 60K salary is better than 8,200 in relation to a 50K salary, even with one less spot. So I do like Fred Van Vliet over here. Eric Gordon, if he plays, I'm going to probably have to prioritize him as well. So maybe it would be Gordon, Dort, and SGA would be the main guys with a little bit of Fred Van Vliet. I don't mind if you want to play Booker, by the way, at 7,700 against the Bulls in this spot. I don't mind Paul George. This is where I would play Josh Jackson. I wouldn't play him over there. I mean, this position is actually weirdly like intriguing to me. But it's going to be hard to. So the problem with the SGA thing, I just want to point this out. Like, this is why I have a hard time is when he gets to be crazy chalky. I mean, half of the games he plays, he doesn't even come close to hitting value. And then other times he just absolutely dismantles it. So sometimes I just want to embrace the variance and just say, F it. I don't want to play a guy at 50% ownership when I have a bunch of good options. But at the same time, Should he have a good game against Atlanta today? Hell yeah, he should. He should put up 45 or 50. And you're going to want that. It's just, I don't know. It doesn't feel great to me when you're going to have this massive, massive ownership, and this guy is, a lot streakier than everybody acts like he is.
Well, I mean, what you can do if you don't like that, I mean, then you just get rid of him. You put in Rozier, and instead of LaMelo, then you run that whole shit back with Curry.
Yeah, I have very little interest in Rozier. I would put him like 10th on my list, maybe further, because I just would much rather play Eric Gordon. I would much rather play Luka.
Okay.
I'd much rather play Booker, and I'd much rather play Mitchell. I'd much rather play Herter. Actually, I mean, this is a pretty loaded position. Like, this is one I think I might not be able to make my final decisions till later today, because I actually like a lot of things here.
Yeah, I don't think the small forward position is particularly attractive.
Every day.
Yeah, and that's why LeBron's always the interesting decision, right? Yeah, so LeBron looks good. I'll tell you who's he's going to be 0-2, but remember, Houston doesn't have a lot of bigs. Not that he's a big, but this could be a big game for maybe OG Anunoby, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So I like him. If you want to pay up and play a Morant, a Kawhi lineup, which I kind of alluded to yesterday, you can do that. Nothing particularly exciting aside from that. So LeBron, I think I'm going back again to what I was talking about yesterday. I'll try, if I'm going to play LeBron, maybe I'll try to make a LeBron Lillard lineup. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Certainly makes it easier on Fanduel.
Yeah, even though it's not that easy here either. But yeah, I mean, LeBron, OG Anunoby, those are. Harrison Barnes is more expensive over here. I don't really like him. I have an ugly position. Sadiq Bey, maybe. Oof.
I love Sadiq Bey.
Yeah, he's 5,100 though.
That's nothing.
Yeah, you sure?
It's the cheapest he's been in, what, 3 weeks?
FanDuel, yeah.
Yeah, he was 58, 58, 53, 53, 53.
Yeah, he's rating okay for me. Daniel House, okay again, 4,500. You like anything I haven't mentioned? I mean.
Yeah, Daniel House is okay to me. Not my first thing. My main guys are going to be again Hayward.
But Hayward, okay.
Hayward, Anunoby, LeBron, Sadiq Bey. I don't really want to get into a bunch of other guys unless we get other information. House is fine. I think too many people are like, it's very strange though, because everybody, I mean, because he put up 2 good games, everybody's going to chase him. Whereas like nobody played him against Chicago because he had a bad game against Philly. It's just, he's all over the map. So when he gets to be owned, it's sort of put him in the same category as it's a very different thing than Rozier, but like, these are not guys you want to be playing at chalk, in my opinion. They just so much of the time are going to miss. Power forward is, I think, an uglier position.
Nah, power forward.
What do you like?
Gonna continue my theme here. I'm gonna play with my eighth piston, I think. So Jeremy Grant, and then the bad chalk of Isaiah Roby, no?
Yeah, these are pretty. That's why I said a terrible position.
Yeah. All right. So you want a little lower on? How about Draymond, something like that?
Yeah. Where's Draymond priced at 73? Oof.
Yeah.
But I get it. I mean, it just feels bad.
I don't feel like paying $10,000 for Sabonis.
I actually don't mind that personally today. I think Jason Tatum is a good play, considering the position. PJ Washington, Jay Crowder, Jeremy Grant, like you said, and Roby are the guys who stand out.
Like Bagley at all?
What's he at?
He's too much.
6K. He's okay. I mean, the back-to-back, he didn't play that much on the front end.
How about PJ?
Washington.
Yeah.
I just said it. Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that.
He's like the first guy I said. Washington, yeah, I hate this position. Washington, Crowder, Roby. I mean, but let's think about it for 1 second. So Crowder versus Roby. So Crowder gets four times the ownership, maybe three and a half times, maybe higher. Jay Crowder has hit 6 out of his last 9 games and has a great matchup. And Roby has a great matchup too, but literally hasn't hit at all in a bunch of matchups like this. And has it once, twice in the last 8 games, and hasn't gotten to 30 while Crowder's gotten to 34 times. Like it just feels weird. You know what I mean? And there's it's not so different today that Roby is like, this is basically what he's been playing with. Horford has missed a lot of these games, and he hasn't gotten there. And Crowder, especially if Saric is out, even with Saric in, has been getting there. But if Saric is out, I love Crowder. And if he somehow is starting again, which they seem to keep flipping, and we get that information, I would load up on Crowder. I hate this position.
Center.
Oddly enough, I think that the weirdest thing is that, like, I don't have a ton of this love for Enes Kanter in this matchup, but 6,300 is 6,300. I still think my favorite play is going to be Capela. I love Capela in this matchup. I just think he's gonna crush. It actually makes me want to force in some OKC guys just because I think Capela is gonna just go nuts. Capela, Gobert, and Ayton are my main guys. A long shot, Kelly Olynyk, Wendell Carter. Those are the other guys I considered, but I don't know. I don't love those guys. I don't love it. But Kanter is the other one that makes sense. He's just going to be really popular and obviously not a good matchup. But he probably like pays off his salary. I don't know how much he exceeds it by, but I do think 6,300 is very, very, very fair. And those are pretty much my guys. But I think Capela might be the one I'm leaning towards the most.
I agree with you. I like Capela the most. I've never had a lot of luck with Kanter. I almost would rather play the other guy in that game at lower ownership. I'd almost rather play Harrell.
It's so hard if you watch the Lakers play a lot to play Harrell because and look, it may change at some point, but it doesn't matter how well he's playing. Like, he was destroying that Washington team in that game, and they pulled him out to miss. He hasn't closed once this season.
That sucks.
And maybe he did. Maybe he did close with those games where Gasol. It was like he wasn't injured but like banged up. Maybe he did again in those OKC games. I think he might have closed, but he just doesn't close like in general. And Gasol certainly seems like a more logical matchup. But maybe they will do something different, and maybe they'll give him more minutes. I mean, maybe it's a speculative play at no ownership. Maybe you're onto something there. It's a good matchup for him. Boy, if he was, he should be like 5K or 4.8 or something. It's just 5.8 feels a little steep when Kanter's right there at 63 and you got the guaranteed minutes. But anyway,
this is actually becoming a little bit better of a slate than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I think we made some sense out of it. And I think for me, I've got a little bit of I mentioned a bunch of players, but I like the guys who I've got. And on Fanduel, I think I've circled 9 guys. On DraftKings, I think I've circled 16. That's not a huge pool for the first look. So I feel pretty good about it. And Sheets, we'll be back with the people at 6:30 Eastern, right?
Hang on. We gotta check Reddit. We have no idea what's going to happen. So I'm just going to refresh my contest page and see how we're doing. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Let's take a look at the golf before we get out of here.
Good. It was like 2,100 before. Oh, no. What's happening?
Well, you might not have guys who haven't played it far enough yet.
That's true. Let's see how this one's doing here. Yeah, the signature hole. Let's see. Maybe some guys haven't started yet. Let's see what's happening.
You might be fine.
Through 5, through 8, through 8, through 6, through 2, through 1.
Everybody looks great on this list.
Yeah. What the hell? So -1 for the day, -2, -1, -3, even -1. Okay. All right.
You're in business. You'll be fine. Get a nice little back 9 from Harris English and make him like 3 or 4 under so he can maybe get under for the tournament.
Oh, he's back to +6. Oh, but he's -1 for the day.
Yeah, that's great. Get a few. All right, guys. Hey, hopefully this was helpful. I know it's a long one. It's a tough slate. We'll be back with you at 6:30 Eastern. And good luck to everyone out there. We'll see you at the top of the leaderboards.
All right. See you guys later. See you later. Bye.